the ultimate indoor cycling setup. Now, I think this might just be the ultimate setup because this is something that I think most people can have. So this isn't the ultimate as in the most expensive and the most advanced technologically. This is, I think, what most people can set up and use and abuse themselves. So here in the pain cave, as they call it, now this is what I use. This is the setup that I use on days where I can't get out because it's not safe. So it's now winter here in the Northern Hemisphere, and in the UK we already had snow even before winter began. I just use that as a day to do some cross training, but that's in another video. And also, if you enjoy the video and you get something out of it, then like the video and subscribe. And there's other videos on the channel about cycling and health related stuff and all the good things of having a good life, bike life and a healthy life. Okay, so today in this video I'll be showing you what I think is the best setup for indoor cycling, really, from life experience and just learning things, how things work best. So I suppose starting off with the bike, so this is actually a warranty replacement frame from a company that I've used a lot, Giant. I think their bikes are pretty good, but yeah, for whatever reason I needed to have a frame replacement, and this is aluminium. So I would always recommend to use aluminium for your indoor bike. Never, well, I say never, but I would not recommend using a carbon fiber bike on a fixed turbo trainer. So I'll show you more. I've got a tacx, just it's fairly cheap, it's a few £100, and I think it has the ability to connect to Bluetooth and whatnot, but it's just on the first setting, I think, and then there's enough resistance for what I need just with the gearing on my bike to get the additional. I'm not doing thousands of watts, so it's good enough just to keep the legs turning over. So this is the trainer I use, turbo trainer. So it just it hooks on here, and yeah, it's just lifted off the ground slightly, and yeah, it's just it is fairly loud, but it's not going to annoy the neighbors. So yeah, I don't recommend carbon fiber because you might, they're not designed to, carbon fiber, when they lay up the frames, they're not designed to have a force through the rear of the bike, through the rear triangle of the bike. But with a metal bike, the frame, it's stronger more in different directions, whereas the carbon fiber, when they lay up the carbon fibers, it's not necessarily built in mind to support the stresses that go through the rear of the bike on something like this. So there's tip number one. I've never broken a carbon fiber bike on a turbo trainer, but I wouldn't risk it. So you might be able to see behind me, I've got my nice bike there that I use for training, and yeah, I'll use that outside. So I don't actually have any brakes connected to this, so I just pull on that, and it's a bit of a strange feeling. But yeah, built this up myself, apart from the bottom bracket, which I'd done in the shop, but the rest of the bike I did it myself. So just front and rear gears and no brakes, because why do you need brakes? Just don't forget it has no brakes. And you might also notice there's no saddle. There will be a saddle. It's just on my spare bike over there. So I haven't actually needed to use the indoor trainer yet this winter. fingers crossed it stays that way. Now I have on here a standard like road racing gear, so I've got 5339 and 1128 I think on the back, so that's fine, don't need to worry about that. And again, you might just be able to see out shot, it doesn't have any pedals, and it also doesn't have a crank, a left-sided crank. Again, that's on my spare bike over there. So I'll run this with power meter crank, so I just use the left-sided power meter crank, and I'll have a bike computer head mount up here, and just have it raised up here with the little tacx block. You know, it lifts the front wheel up so it's more, because I'm off the ground at the back by a few inches, so that makes it just comfortable, so you're not leaning forward, it keeps the bars normal height, level height. So behind me I have where the entertainment goes on. So I'll either use, so if it's under an hour, I might use Zwift and just ride with that. Not necessarily structured. I don't really do structured riding on the indoor training. I just like to ride and I enjoy that, and that gets me fit. So I'll have that connected over, you might be able to see it, but I've got an old PlayStation 3 NES. It's still running after, God, is it 12, 13 years or more? 15 years or something maybe now, but it's still running. So I have that connected to this TV. So this TV is just fairly cheap. I think it was, I went with 4K, you don't need to do that, but yeah, I think it was about £350 in the sale about 3 Christmases ago, I think. And yeah, it's still working. It's always on the wall of the garage here in the pain cave, and I cover it with essentially lots of padding. So I've got the original box and I cut off one side, so I put that on the wall and I protect that, so if I accidentally knocked it, it doesn't get broken, so that's fine. So I just cover that with foam and an old sleeping bag and whatnot, so don't have to worry about that. And I connect it through, it's a bit dusty, but I say I haven't actually had to use it yet. But so yeah, connect that to an old PlayStation and I can watch film. So I've actually got some films here that I would watch. So I love the Pirates of the Caribbean. The Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest is actually one of my favourite films of all time. But the original sort of trilogy with you know, those original characters, so the Curse of the Black Pearl and At World's End as well, amazing films. So there you go, they'll pass the time, and they're about 2.5 hours long. So yeah, it's if I'm doing a longer ride on here, so it was multiple days back to back where I just couldn't get out because the weather's too bad. Then if I want to do longer rides to, you know, now in the winter, building fitness up, then if I want to do the longer ride, so more than an hour, I find that for me, and maybe you find it if you go on a plane journey or whatever, watching films I think is quite a good way to pass the time. But you have to find, I think, the right films actually, because sometimes you realise what films are good and which aren't. So the Pirates of the Caribbean films, if you want to do 2 hours or more, that'll easily pass the time. And if you want to do 5 hours, then back to back, they're great. So yeah, I've got this big fan here, which is really quite powerful. It has a 3-set. I think it's from Argos, I think, and it's called the Challenge fan, something like that from memory. But it has 3 different settings, and I don't think I ever get to the 3rd most powerful one. And yeah, that keeps. So I have it angled here. So I try and keep, you know, my face and my chest, you know, cooler, so I don't feel like I'm going to overheat. Now I haven't brought it with me out here, but I usually have a towel and I'll just drape it over here, you know, to keep me comfortable. And I have a nice little table here on the left, so I'll keep my right hand free so I can change the gears, and I'll keep my table on the left side, and I usually put the controls there just for the PlayStation, the TV, and also any extra food or anything like that. I'll just place there just within easy reach. And I say this doesn't, it's not taking up, you know, lots of room, and it doesn't need to, and it's not difficult to set up. You know, it takes 5 minutes to set it all up. Just need to I always make sure, and should always make sure, I always disconnect the cables, because I don't want to, you know, snap it off inside the TV or whatnot. But always put your cables in the same place every time, because, you know, I've done it before. Maybe it's been a whole winter since the last time and you can't find your cables, so that's really annoying. So I always try and remember to put them in the same place. Yeah, I've just got extension cable there plugged into the wall, so I can plug in all the things I need. And the other thing is, because I'm using the phone as a camera for Zwift, I use my smartphone, and I have a cable which I connect up to TV with it, and because I've got the extension cable, I can also charge my phone at the same time, so I don't need to worry about the phone going dead. And yeah, so it's about 8-9 degrees in here, I think, at the moment. Might be a little bit warmer than that, but if I'm worried about it getting too hot in here, I'll raise up the garage door. But to be honest, I prefer it when it starts to heat up a little bit more, so when I start producing heat while I'm exercising, it's not very comfortable when you first hit the cold of the garage. So I actually will leave the garage door down and just let the heat in the garage, actually in the pain cave, like, you know, increase. I don't think you need to, you know, worry about, you know, keeping it cold, because I think a lot of, you know, what we see with people they go over and do, you know, altitude training. Well, there is also, you know, possibly a benefit from riding in the heat. So you can increase your fitness by riding in the heat. Yes, but that's probably for another video. Now I think I've covered everything. You know, I've just got a bottle cage here. I'd say, you know, when you're riding indoors, you definitely sweat more. It just happens. So you need to, I think, drink more fluid than you normally would. So I usually use sugar water quite often to fuel me, but if I'm drinking that much water, I'll be taking in that much sugar, I'll just change it out. So I might even have, you know, like an actual meal while riding, so rice or even a pizza. If I treat myself to the pain and the purgatory of the pain cave, I'll have that, and I can just put that on my little table there. Now I hope this helped. I say this video helped. This bike is just made up with, you know, it's got Shimano 105 on it, and I find that 105 is just, you know, it's really reliable, and for something like this, you know, it's just perfect. I don't have to worry about it being fancy or whatnot. It just gets the miles in, and, you know, gets the miles done. I mean, these are all an old pair of Mavic wheels again, you know, and with on the back I've got a training tire. It's a Vittoria training tire, and it lasts quite a long time. But if you ever ride them on the roads, they are very slippy, so don't forget. And yeah, I just got an old worn tire on the front, and yeah, just make sure that the tire is, you know, pumped up hard so it rolls, you know, well on the trainer. Yeah. So I hope this video helped and showed that, you know, you don't have to spend lots of money on hurting yourself in the pain cave. You can keep it simple, and yeah, it doesn't look particularly pretty or clean, you know, like you see, you know, on other media where they're showing how it should be. This is, I think, a real world example of what, you know, training through the winter might look like. Yeah, it's not pretty, but it gets it done, and it can pass the time, I think, pretty well when you've got, you know, TV and the film playing, and that's also another thing. I'll bring out a speaker as well. I've got a Bluetooth speaker, and I'll just put it here. You know, that's another way of changing up what, you know, how I'm entertaining myself. So, yeah, like and subscribe, and you know, I've got plenty of the videos on the channel, so check them out and leave a comment if you want. Don't if you don't want to. Anyway, thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.